want to talk about inkjet printers for just a moment. I suspect all of you have owned or do own an inkjet printer, have owned in some time in your life. Well, I own one too, and a few years ago, mine broke down. Don't know why, I'm not sure quite what happened to it. So I went to the manufacturer's website to see if I could find a way to fix it. Didn't find anything. Every link took me to the FAQ page, and I personally hate FAQ pages. They don't give you any information. I think of them as, the web equivalent of talk to the hand, right? FAQ, I think, stands for first ask the quacks, then come to the real technical support. That didn't help. So I took it to one of these places like Geek Squad in large electronic stores and took the printer to them, and they said, well, I said to them, this is not working anymore. I'd like you to fix it. Said, well, it'll be $75 for us to look at it. How much did you pay for it? $60. Well, you could go to the store that's right behind you, and you could buy another one, a brand new one, much better than yours, for $50. And I'm thinking, well, I'd rather not buy a new one. I think I can get this one fixed. So I said to them, no, I'd like you to fix this. Well, they probably saw stupid written all over my face, but they took the printer, said, come back in a week. Went back in a week. Sorry, sir, we can't fix your printer. Like, wow, what's wrong? We don't know quite what's wrong with it. We'll charge you $25 and you can take it back. I think they knew already that I'm stupid. They didn't want me to be poor as well. They charged me $25. I took it back home. This is not a sad story. There's a happy ending. So I started looking online again and eventually found other souls like me who had the same problem before. And I discovered that what was wrong was the printer head. I needed a new printer head, and I'd be okay. $45 later, I got a printer head. I've fixed my printer, and it works again. Well, it turns out the problem was, it was my fault. What I had been doing, well, now the inkjet printer is a rather inexpensive product. Well, the printer, it is expensive. The inkjet part, not so much, right? You have to keep buying the inkjet cartridges over and over again. They create a lot of waste, so I thought I'd be devious and green and try to work around the problem of having to buy inkjet cartridges all the time. So you can go to the store and buy a devious little kit. This kit has a few interesting things in it. It has a little drill bit that you can bore holes into the inkjet printer. It also has little vials of ink. It has a syringe. I took the needle off for safety reasons. And you can inject new ink into your ink cartridges, saving you from having to buy cartridges all the time. Well, that's what ruined my printer. So what this leads to is the fact that we are surrounded by a whole range of technological gadgets that we live with. And we have to live with them because they, in a way, kind of rule our lives, right? A student of mine a few years ago wanted to buy a new MP3 player, and he wanted to get engraved on the back of his printer these words, obsolete technology. He said to me, I know that in a few days, this will be obsolete, and I'll have to buy the next version. And this happens to all of us, right? You want to buy a new computer or a new laptop, a new camera, a new MP3 player, and you want to go buy it, and your friend says to you, don't buy it yet. There's another one coming out in 2 months. And you wait. You wait 2 months, and you can't wait any longer. You buy it, and the minute you buy it, the new one comes out. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's better, and it looks good too. What do you do with this? How do you get around this problem of obsolete technology? Well, the student of mine who got this thing, well, I don't actually know if he got that thing printed or not, whether they agreed to do it or not, but he also was a big fan of music, and he had some of his favorite albums, an album by The Cars, on vinyl. He had the same album on tape. This goes back quite a few years, on CD, and also as an MP3 file. So he had all this music, the exact same music, no bonus tracks, no special effects, the same music on 4 different formats. He knew, for instance, that there's some amount of tech nostalgia going on here, right? We can attach to certain kinds of technologies, but also we all know that vinyl sounds much better than MP3s, right? We all know that. Anyway, what happens when these formats change this rapidly is that a whole category of gadgets suddenly becomes obsolete. Right? This is my collection of Walkmans. Unfortunately, I have more Walkmans than I have cassettes, so I can't really use them that much. But let's look at this notion of technological obsolescence. This is a phrase, it's a quote that goes back almost 100 years, about 90 years, from a legend in automotive, in the world of in the automobile industry. This is Henry Ford from 1922 from his book called My Life and My Work. A machine that will last forever. Figure that. Let's compare that to this quote. Our big job is to hasten obsolescence. And this is from Harley Earl, who you just heard about in John's conversation. Harley Earl is considered one of the pioneers of transportation design. But look at the last sentence. We actually are there now, right? We have what's called the annual model change. It's 2010. I bet you could buy the 2011 version of your car today. So the new versions come out even before we're done with last year's versions. So that's planned obsolescence. There are other names for this as well. Progressive obsolescence. If you want progress, you need obsolescence. That's what we're told. GM referred to it as dynamic obsolescence. It's also called death dating. Now, this is no morbid form of going out with someone. This is essentially designing into the product the time that it's going to die. Some other terms for it as well. Contrived durability. This comes from economic literature. And creative waste. If you want to be creative and come up with newer ideas, you have to generate a certain amount of waste. Anyone heard this song, One Piece at a Time? It's a song by Johnny Cash, fantastic song written by Wayne Kemp. It's sort of a tragic-comic story of this guy who works at works in the automobile industry building Cadillacs. And he can't afford to buy the Cadillacs he builds. So what does he do? He decides that he's going to steal one component at a time in his big lunchbox out every day. The engine, the transmission. So he carries these things out. It takes him over 10 years, gets all the parts, takes them back home, and at night he builds this car. And he ends up with a Cadillac 10, 15 years down the road. Well, what happens if you have an annual model change? The design's changing every year. So what he ends up with is a car that has one headlamp on one side and two on the other. One door on one side, two on the other side. Only one tail fin, not the other. So this is what he ends up with. And it's sort of an interesting story. And the gentleman that you see on the right-hand side, that's Bruce Fitzpatrick. He runs a company, an auto body shop in Nashville called Abernathy Auto Parts. And Johnny Cash's production team approached him in 1976 to build this car as a sort of promotion for the song. And it's a fantastic song if you haven't heard it. The second line of the song is, it didn't cost me a dime, because he kind of pilfers these parts from the factory. But what it says to us is that there's a problem with this constant changing of the design, of constantly coming up with newer versions. There are several forms of obsolescence. There's a lovely book called Made to Break by Gilles Slade. He talks about this technological obsolescence. He talks about planned obsolescence and also psychological obsolescence. So psychological obsolescence is the car phenomenon, where your existing product is still working, but you're tired of it. You're sick of it. The newer one's out there. I'm going to go with that. And the last one is planned obsolescence, which Slade refers to as slightly more insidious. That's when you actually design components to fail sooner than they should. You compromise materials. You use adulteration and consciously minimize the life of these components. But not all car companies did this annual model change. Volvo, as we all know, is a car company that's famous for its durability. So this is one of their ads from this time. And I'm not sure if you can read the text on below, but it says, a logical next step is creating a program of planned obsolescence. It's a paper car. And in the ad, they talk about you can have on weekends, you could have the dandy polka dot car. And on weekdays, you could have the swinging striped version. And on more serious days, you could have plain black. So the idea is that you could have a paper car that promotes this idea of planned obsolescence. Of course, it's a joke. What they actually say in the rest of the text is that Volvo builds its cars out of nice, thick steel. We'll get to that in just a moment. But the idea of a paper product is not all that strange. These are paper dresses. These were around in the 1960s. You should carefully read the thing that says, do not wash. They won't clean. They'll simply disappear. Yeah, but this did exist. And again, you could wear it 1 day or 2 days, go out, and you toss them. Right? It was not that unusual. But this is the vehicle that is made from nice, thick steel. This car and this gentleman in the photograph is Irv Gordon. It's a Volvo that he bought in 1966. It is the car that has the highest mileage in the world. 2.84 million miles. One car, same engine, same transmission. He might have changed the radio. That's about it. Same car. And he's still driving it. This 2.84 million miles is from 2 weeks ago when I called him and tried to get the latest odometer reading on the car. Now that's durability, right? This car has been around since 1966. He paid $4,150 for it. Well, after he crossed 1 million miles, Volvo gave him a free car, a brand new car. He crossed 2 million, they gave him another car. And he was complaining to me, look, I never get to use these other two cars. No matter where I go, people want to see this one. So I never get to use them. But what does this lead to? What does this constant changing of products lead to? Waste, right? This is an illustration by, a photographic illustration by Chris Jordan. He's an artist who works out of Seattle. If you haven't seen his work, it's absolutely amazing. I recommend you go to chrisjordan.com and see his work. And this is a part of a series called Intolerable Beauty. And he's gone to several locations across the world and taken photographs of things like cell phones, paper bags, plastic bags, you name it. It's absolutely amazing work. And what happens with this kind of waste is that electronic waste is a huge problem. If you just look up e-waste, the amount of issues it leads to simply because of the fact that there's electronics components inside is quite a problem. So increasing the lifespans of goods, minimizing waste, these are good strategies for sustainable design and development. However, not everything in nature is designed to be durable or doesn't create waste. Let's look at the environment that we live in, the Sonoran Desert, and these majestic saguaros that we live with. Some of them live hundreds of years. What happens to them when they die? Right, so what can happen at times is either some sort of fungus or bacteria might infect the plant from the cactus from the inside, and it starts getting weaker and weaker, and there's wind, and it sort of falls down. What happens when it comes down? Well, 90% of the flesh of the saguaro is water. And you can actually, if you've seen one in South Mountain Park or elsewhere in the state, you'll see that there's actually a river of water that comes out of it. It can actually soak up a significant amount of water. And in its death, it creates almost an environment for an entire new ecosystem. There are microorganisms, there are bugs, worms, beetles, all that's surviving in this slightly stinky, gooey mess that is the death of the saguaro. But as it dies, it gives life as it disappears. Not so much with the products that we design, for the most part. So it's all about value. What value can you create? Or what value is created? Or what value disappears? So you buy a new car, right? You drive off the lot. What happens to its value? The minute you drive away, you're losing value on the car. You've gone through a harrowing experience of buying a vehicle. You're totally happy. You're driving away, and the value is dropping. Why? It's absurd. There are certain things that don't go down in value. Jeans, right? They get ripped, they get torn, they get more comfortable. It's fantastic. Old leather jackets, right? It gets almost like a patina. Fabulous. Cast iron skillets, don't wash them. Might feel weird, but don't wash them. It builds this layer of gunk and food and all oil. It's fantastic. It's really good for cooking. Musical instruments, right? The tone gets better with age. So there are things that get better with age. There are things that improve in value as they get older. But very often we don't use things till the time that they can last. This is a diagram. There's a group called the Eternally Yours Foundation. They're looking at this whole notion of durability in products. What you see at the bottom, computers, we discard them while they're still functioning quite well. Stovetops, stereos, videos. So we discard things while they're still functioning reasonably well, right? And it all leads to the technological obsolescence, psychological obsolescence, planned obsolescence. So if you think about value, there are several different kinds of value that we can think about, right? Take an example of an heirloom ring, maybe something that was passed down from generation to generation. Your grandma had it and her grandma did. There's a whole range of values in addition to its financial value, right? There's symbolic value, emotional value because it belongs to your grandma. There's, of course, economic value because there's some precious stones in it. There's historical value, cultural value, aesthetic value. So there's all these kinds of value. How do we design these kinds of values in the products that we design? How do we do that? A large number of what we see in the world around us is disposable goods, right? Things made out of paper and styrofoam. And the problem with these things is this whole notion of value. What's the value of these paper cups and these styrofoam cups? When you buy, say, a cup of coffee in one of these, you're not really paying for the cup, are you? You're paying for the liquid. The cup itself has zero value, absolutely zero value. What happens to it when it dies? So it's highly disposable in its life, right? So you use it, you drink your coffee, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you toss it. Highly disposable in life, very durable in death. What happens to paper can biodegrade? What happens to styrofoam when it's thrown in the landfill? Scientists think that there will be a time when we might have microbes and bacteria that can biodegrade and that can eat up and break down polymers. But right now, they'll be there for a while, thousands of years perhaps. So these things don't degrade. They don't disappear. What if we were to design our products like the saguaro? So what does the saguaro do? When it's alive, it hosts a whole potential birds in its body. It provides beauty in the environment. What happens to it when it dies? Well, it disappears, but it leaves just a memory of what it was when it was alive. If we were to design our products like this, where when they disappear, they don't leave toxic waste in the environment, they don't leave something that's completely durable and doesn't disappear forever, but they leave just a memory, it's a bit of a history of what they were. That'd be a fantastic world to live in, right? So there are strategies for sustainable design and development. There are ways by which we can bring a whole range of different kinds of values into the products that we design. And that'll make the world a much, much better place. But to go into all those strategies, I'll need 18 more minutes. Thank you.